Baruchim ha'aboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin together on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, 6 lines from the bottom at the 2 dots. The Gemara now brings the Mishnah in regards to making interruptions during the Kriya Shema. If it's baprokim, meaning between the brachos of Kriya Shema, or between the paragraphs of the Kriya Shema, so Rabbi Meir is the opinion that you can be shoyel mibnei hakavod u'meishiv. If it's ba'emsa, in the middle of the Kriya Shema, he says you can be shoyel mibnei hayira u'meishiv. Says the Gemara, meishiv machmas mai. What is it referring to? Meaning to say that you just said, Rabbi Meir, that you can be shoyel mibnei hakavod. If there's a zaken, for example, comes in to the shul in the middle while you're saying Kriya Shema, and he comes next to you, you can say Shalom Aleichem to him. That is regards to prokim, in between the paragraphs. If the Meishiv responding to him saying Shalom to you is referring to kavod, to this zaken, Hashta Misha Shoyel Adurimi Boy. Now that Rabbi Meir permits you to then actively ask Shalom Aleichem to this zaken, so then certainly passively you can respond to his question to you. Ella, it must mean Shoyel Mibnei HaKavod Umeishiv Shalom L'Kol Adam. It must mean that you can be shoyel proactively and say Shalom Aleichem to a zaken because of kavod purposes, and a regular person you can respond to his question to you of Shalom Aleichem when he asks you. Yomi Masechet. Now let's go to the next part of the Mishnah. Uve'emtza shoyel mibnei hayira umeishiv. Rabbi Meir says in the middle of the Kriya Shema you can interrupt because of yira umeishiv. Similarly, the Gemara asks, Meishiv machmas mai. What are you responding to? Is it also the same person of Yira? Let's say a person encounters a king. A king comes before him while he's in the middle of the Kriya Shema. And he can say to him, Shalom Aleichem. What about Meishiv? Is that referring to him as well? If you're going to say, for such an individual like a king, because of Yira, you can go ahead and respond to him. Ask the Gemara, Hashta Misha Shoyel Ahadurmi Boy. Now that you can actively ask the king because of Yira purposes and say Shalom Aleichem, certainly you can respond to him asking you. Ela Mibnei HaKavod. Rather, it must mean one darga less, that it means over here in the middle of the Kriya Shema, that you can be Shoyel Mibnei Hayira and respond even to a person of kavod, if it's just a zaken. Ask the Gemara now, if this is the way that we're going to learn Rabbi Meir, then Hainu de Rabbi Yehuda. That's exactly the words of his Baal Plukta, the one who's arguing with in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda. Disnan, for it says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Be'emtza shoyel mibnei hayira umeishiv mibnei hakavod. That you should be shoyel mibnei hayira, let's say to a king, and only answer mibnei hakavod, meaning answer even mibnei hakavod. Ubeprokim shoyel mibnei hakavod, and if it's in between, then you can be shoyel actively mibnei hakavod and go one step less by saying umeishiv shalom l'kol adam, and you can respond to even anybody who says shalom aleichem to you. That's a question. Says the Gemara, middle of the paragraphs, then you can be shoyel mibnei hayira and meishiv mibnei hakavod. Ubeprokim, and if it's in between, then shoyel mibnei hakavod umeishiv shalom l'kol adam. That's exactly what Rabbi Yehuda says. Answers the Gemara, chesurei mechsera. There are words that are missing here in the Mishnah. V'hachi kitani, and this is how it is written. This is how it's taught. Baprokim shoyel mibnei hakavod. Ve'ein tzorich lo meshuhu meishiv. What Rabbi Meir means to say is, you can be shoyel mibnei hakavod, and you don't need even to then mention that of course you can be meishiv mibnei hakavod. That's pashut. Ube'emsa, and in the middle you can be shoyel mibnei hayira. Ve'ein tzorich lo meshuhu meishiv. Divrei Rabbi Meir. You can be shoyel mibnei hakavod, mibnei hayira, if it's in the middle, and you don't even have to mention that you can be meishiv. That's pashut. Rabbi Yehuda Omer be'emtza shoyel mibnei hayira umeishiv mibnei hakavod. Ube'aprokim shoyel mibnei hakavod umeishiv shalom l'kol adam. Says the Gemara, we also have a brisa to support what we just said as an explanation for the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Tani nami hochi. Hakore es Shema, a person who's reading the Kriya Shema, upogo boy rabbi oy gadol mimenu, and he encounters his Rebbe or somebody is bigger than him, and therefore it's an issue of kavod. Baprokim shoyo mipnei kavod ve'ein sorich loimer shu meshiv. If it's in between the paragraphs, he can be shoyel mipnei kavod, and certainly you don't even have to mention, but of course he can be meshiv and respond to that person's sheilas shalom. Ube'emtza, if it's in the middle, shoyel mipnei hayira ve'ein sorich loimer shu meshiv, and if it's in the middle, then he can be shoyel mipnei hayira, and certainly he can be meshiv. Div Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, be'emtza shom mnei hayira u'meishiv mnei hakavod. If it's in the middle, so then he agrees that you can be shoyel mnei hayira, but he's more makel and says you can be meishiv mnei hakavod. Uba prokim, and if it's in between, then shoyel mnei hakavod u'meishiv shalom lekol adam. Says the Gemara weiter. Ask the Gemara the following question in regards to then interruptions. No longer talking about Kriya Shema, but now we're going to a different inyan of Hallel and Megillas Esther. Says the Gemara, Boi minei achoy, Tana de Rabbi Chia, me Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Achoy, who taught in the house of Rabbi Chia, in the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Chia, he asked Rabbi Chia the following question. Behallel uva Megillah mahu. Sheyafsik. In regards to Hallel and Megillas Esther on Purim, can he make a hefsek? Omrin an kalva choymer Kriya Shema diaraisa posik Hallel d'Rabbanan boy. On the first side, we would say, well, if you can make an interruption in Kriya Shema, which is diaraisa, then certainly you can make an interruption in Hallel and in Megillas Esther on Purim, because it's only d'Rabbanan. On the other hand, Odilma Pirsume Nisa Adif, maybe because when it comes to Hallel and the Megillah, that's an inyan of being mefarsim the nes, publicizing the miracle, and therefore that even is more chamur in a certain sense, and therefore you would not be able to then make a hefsek. Answers the Gemara, Omar lei. So Reb Chia answered him, Poisek ve'ein bekach klum. You can be poisek, and not only that, ein bekach klum, there's not an issue of a problem of Pirsume Nisa not being an issue. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabba says in regards to Hallel that we just mentioned, Yomim shehayochid goymer bohenes haHallel, the days that a yachid, an individual, completes the Hallel, and those are 18 days of the year that an individual, and the tzibur as well, completes the Hallel. Those are the 7 days of Sukkot, the 8th day of Shmini Atzeres, plus another 8 days of Chanukah, that's 16 days. The first day of Pesach, 17, and the first day of Shavuos. That's in regards to Bnei Eretz Yisrael. In Chutz La'aretz, we have to add another 3 days, an additional day for each regel, therefore getting to 21 days of the year. Says the Gemara once again, Yomim she'hayochid goymer bohenas haHallel, bein perek leperek poisek. If it's in between the prokim, you can make a hefsek. Be'emtza haperek ain't a poisek. But if it's in the middle, you cannot make an interruption. V'yom she'ein hayochid goymer bohenas haHallel. For example, on Rosh Chodesh, where you don't goymer the Hallel, afilu be'emtza haperek poisek. Even in the middle, one can be poisek. Ask the Gemara, Ini, is that so? V'ho Rav Bar Shava ikla legabe de Ravina. He came and he visited Ravina. V'yomim she'ein hayochid goymer haHallel. Hava, and it was one of those days where Yachid does not goymer the Hallel, v'lo posik lei, and he did not stop, he did not interrupt to say shalom to Ravi Shava. Answers the Gemara, no, really you could make an interruption, but Shiny Rav Bar Shava de lo chashiv alei de Ravina, because he wasn't more chashiv than Ravina, and therefore, since he wasn't a bigger chacham than Ravina, Ravina did not interrupt the Hallel to say Shalom Aleichem to him. Says the Gemara, Boi minei Aishion Tana de Rabbi Ami me Rabbi Ami. Here the Gemara is discussing a different point altogether in regards to a tainis. Let's talk about a personal tainis, where a person accepts upon himself a tainis. The following question is asked. Rabbi Ashion asked Rabbi Ami, Hashori betainis mahu sheyitoim. If a person is shori betainis, a personal tainis, can he then be toyem? Can he taste food or drink? Says the Gemara, Achila v'shtiya kabel alei v'holeko. He accepted upon himself not to eat and not to drink, and here he's not eating and drinking, he's just tasting. O Dilma, Hana kabel alei v'ha'ika. Or perhaps he accepted himself not to have any benefit, any enjoyment, any hana, and he is enjoying by giving a taste to the food or to the drink. Says the Gemara to answer, Amarlei, Toyem ve'ein bekach klum. He can taste, and there's no problem, even with the issue of hana over here. Tanya nami hochi, the Gemara brings a brisa to support this. Mita'emes eina tu'una bracha. If a person gives a te'ima, he tastes a food, he does not need to say a bracha on that food. V'hashoy b'tainis toyem ve'ein bekach klum. And a person who's in the middle of a tainis, he can taste food, and ein bekach klum, it's not an issue even of being neheneh from that food. Ask the Gemara now as a follow-up question, how much can he taste in order to be still permissible on a tainis? Ad kama, asked the Gemara, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, Tamei ad shir revi osa. We have a maisa, an uvda, that Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, they tasted until a shir of a revi'is. Says the Gemara further, Omar Rav, here the Gemara is speaking about what a person can do before davening. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav, Kol hanoisen shalom lechaveroi, all who give shalom to his fellow man, koidem sheyispalo, before davening, ki'ilu aso bama, it's as if he built an altar. Shenemaz, it says, chidlu lochem min ha'adam asher neshama ba'apoi. Desist from giving cover to a person who has a neshama inside of him. Ki bameh nechshavu, in what is he compared to? Says the Gemara, al tikrei bameh ela bama. Don't read in what, but rather in an altar, as a mizbeach. Says the Gemara, Shmuel Omar, and Shmuel said, you don't have to darshan the pasuk to explain it in this way. Even the pshuto shel mikra implies the same. Omar, Shmuel Omar, bameh chashavto lezeh. Why do you have to give chashivus to this person and give him kavod in the midst of when you're supposed to be davening? V'lo le'eloika, not to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the pasuk itself implies that chidlu lochem min ha'adam asher neshama ba'apoi ki v'ameh nechshavu, in the time when you're supposed to then be mechabed HaKadosh Baruch Hu in tefillah, why are you coming to mechabed somebody else? Ask the Gemara, okay, Masiv Rav Sheshes beprokim shoel mipnei hakavod u'meishi, but we learned before that according to the halacha, which is Rabbi Yehuda, that a person is shoel in between the prokim because of kavod u'meishiv, that implies even before the tefillah. So why over here is there an issue? Says the Gemara, you have to explain. Tir Gemara Rabbi Abba b'mashkim lepischoi. We're talking about when you go to a person's house and to his doorway, or you go to where he's sitting in the Beis HaKnesset, the Beis HaMedrash, and you go over to him and say Shalom Aleichem before davening. That's where you're building a bama. But if you encounter him either outside or in your entranceway to the Beis HaMedrash, that is not considered to be building a bama, and therefore you can go ahead and say to him Shalom Aleichem. Says the Gemara weiter, along these lines about making an interruption or doing things before davening. Omar Rav Idi bar Avin, Omar Rav Yitzchak bar Ishon. It is prohibited from a person doing his own personal needs, taking care of his own personal needs, and going to the market, for example, before davening to Hashem. Shenemaz, it states, Tzedek lefonov yahalech, the simple verse is read, righteousness will walk before him, before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'yosem laderech pe'omov, and put his footsteps on the way. That's the regular Pashut reading of the verse. But the Gemara makes a drasha. V'omer Rav Idi bar Avin, omer Rav Yitzchak bar Ishon, kol hamispalel v'achar kach yoytze laderech, all who daven and then they go on the way. No, I'm sorry, going back one step. The Gemara brought this as a proof to say that if a person goes ahead and is taking care of his own personal needs before davening, by going shopping or whatever before davening, that's like the verse is saying, Tzedek lefonecha yahalech. Tzedek over here refers to tefillah. The tefillah should be going before him. V'yosim laderech pam, and you're making your footsteps go in its place instead. Now the Gemara says, what about if indeed you do the correct thing and you daven before taking care of your own needs of going shopping or whatever? V'omer Rav Idi bar Avin, Rav Yitzchak bar Ishon, kol hamispalel v'achar kach yotzei laderech, all who daven and then afterwards go on their way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu oiseh lechafotzav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of his needs. Shneimar, it states, tzedek lefonav yahalech v'yosim laderech pe'omov. He puts tzedek, he puts tefillah before he goes on his ways, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of his footsteps by making them successful. Says the Gemara weiter, Omer Rabbi Yoina Omer Bizera, Kol halon shivas yomim beloy chaloim nikra ra. If a person, he goes to sleep and 7 nights in a row he has no chaloimois, no dreams, it's a bad thing. Says the Gemara, Shneimar brings a posuk, V'saveya yolin bal yifkad ro. The pasuk says, "V'saveya yolin," a person who is satiated in his sleep, bal yifkad ra, he will not be then concerned and considered ra. He will not have ra as a consideration. Says the Gemara to make a drasha, al tikri saveya. Don't read the word saveya in the pasuk, elo sheva, and therefore sheva yolin bal yifkad ra. Right? If there's seven nights that he is going to sleep without a chalom, then don't think there won't be any ra. The Gemara makes the drasha. Omar Rav Acha bered Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Hochi Amar Rabbi Chia Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol hamasbiya atzmo midivrei Torah v'lon. However, if a person fills himself up by learning a lot of Torah and then he goes to sleep, he brings this verse. We will welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem on Daf Yud Beis, Amud Beis, at the new Gemara. The Mishnah had discussed a machlokes between Ben Zoyma and the Chachamim as how to darshan the pasuk Leman Tizkar es Yom Tzeischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim Kol Yemei Chayecha. According to Ben Zoyma, Yemei Chayecha refers to Hayomim. Kol Yemei Chayecha refers to Haleilos. However, the Chachamim argue and they say Yemei Chayecha refers to Olam Hazeh, and Kol Yemei Chayecha comes to include Yemois HaMashiach. Says the Gemara, Tanya, we have the following brayso. Omar lehem ben Zoyma lachachamim. Ben Zoyma says to the Chachamim, V'chi mazkirun yetzias Mitzrayim limois HaMashiach. Is it indeed so that we're going to mention the miracles that transpired when HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim during the days of Yemos HaMashiach? V'haloi kvar nemar. And behold, it already states in the following verse, Hine yomim boim ne'um Hashem. Behold, the days are coming, is the word of Hashem. V'lo yoimru oid chai Hashem. And they will not swear, Hashem lives. Asher heles bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took us up from the land of Mitzrayim with open miracles. Ki im chai Hashem. Asher hele v'asher hevi azer beis Yisrael. But rather they're going to swear that Hashem lives by the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us up and brought us back, the seed of Yisrael. Me'eretz Safoina, from the northern land. Umikol ha'arotzos asher hidachtim sham, and from all of the lands that He has dispersed them. So this implies that we no longer will mention the Nisim that took place when HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim, but rather the Nisim that will take place in the Geula HaSida. Amru loi, the Chachamim respond back to Ben Zoymo, Lo sheta'akir Yetzias Mitzrayim mimkomo. It doesn't mean to say that the Nisim and Mitzrayim will no longer be mentioned at all. Elo shetei shibud malchios iker v'yetzias Mitzrayim tafelo. But rather the shibud malchios that Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to make in the future, the Nisim that will take us out into a geula shlema, that will be primary, whereas the Nisim that Kadosh Baruch Hu performed for us when He took us out of Mitzrayim will only be secondary. Similarly, you find it says in the pasuk, Lo yikare shimcha oid Yaakov. Hashem says you will no longer be called by the name of Yaakov. Ki im Yisrael yeshmecha, because Yisrael will be your name. Doesn't mean that no longer will be called Yaakov at all. Lo sheya'aker Yaakov mimekoimo. Not that Yaakov's name will be uprooted entirely. Eli Yisrael Iker v'Yaakov Tofeloi. But rather, the name Yisrael will be primary, and the name Yaakov will be secondary. V'chein hu oimer. Similarly, we find it says in the verse, Al tizkeru rishonos. Do not recall the first ones. V'kadmoniyos al tizboinenu. And the early ones do not contemplate. Explains the Brisa, Al tizkeru rishonos ze shibud malchios. Don't recall the first ones. That's referring to the shibud malchios of Yavan, Modai, and Bavel. The kadmonios al tizboinu, and the earlier ones do not contemplate zu yitzias Mitzrayim. This refers to the miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim. The next pasuk goes on to say, Hineni oise chadash, behold, I will make a new, referring to a new miracle. Ato titzmach, and now it will sprout. Tani Rav Yosef taught, Zu melchamas goigu mogog. So you see that the ultimate miracles in the Geula Asida will be so strong that the others will just will pale in comparison. But doesn't mean we'll no longer mention the earlier ones. Mashal Ma'adavar Doime is a parable compared to the following. La'odam shahaya mahalech baderech upaga boy ze'ev. It's a mashal of a person who is traveling on the road and he encounters a wolf. V'nitzal mimenu, and he is saved from the wolf. V'haya mesaper v'holech ma'aseh ze'ev, and he goes and speaks about the miracle that took place when he was saved from the wolf. Paga boy ari v'nitzal mimenu. He encounters an ari and he is saved from the ari. V'haya mesaper v'holech ma'aseh ari, and he goes and speaks about the nisim that took place when he was saved from this ari. Paga by nachash v'nitzal mimenu. Subsequently, he encounters a nachash, a deadly serpent, and he is saved from that nachash. Shochach ma'aseh shneim v'hoya mesaper v'holech ma'aseh nachash. He forgets about the ze'ev and he forgets about the ari, because deadly of all is the nachash who he was saved from. That's what he focused about the nisim that took place when he was saved from this nachash. Afkach Yisrael, tzoros ha'achronos mishkachas is arishonos. So to Yisrael, all of those shibud malchios of Yavon, of Madai, of even Bavel and Mitzrayim, all of those will be forgotten in comparison to that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu will then take place in the open miracles of La'osi Lovo and Gogog Mogog.